Post your location and your current time in the comments. I want to know where in the modern world you are as you drift back into a very ancient one. Sweet dreams come easier when you realize the dinosaurs were only just getting started. The scene around you is post-apocalyptic, though not in the way we imagine cities crumbling. Instead, entire lineages of reptiles have winked out. Roughly 3 out of every 4 species that strutted across the Triassic landscape have simply disappeared. Scientists believe massive volcanic outpourings along the central Atlantic magmatic province choked the air with carbon dioxide and sulfur. As you breathe, the air is hot, thicker with greenhouse gases than anything you'd know in the present. The seas foamed with acid, ecosystems cracked under the strain, and the old rulers, massive phytosaurs resembling crocodiles, armored atosaurs with spiked backs, and the Sapien with their terrifying gaits, all collapsed. What lingers in their wake is opportunity. Dinosaurs, still relatively obscure in the Triassic, have managed to dodge the worst blows of extinction. Their light frames, efficient lungs, and fast metabolisms gave them an edge. Picture a Triassic atosaur, plates rattling as it struggled to graze, then imagine it gone, replaced by lean bipedal dinosaurs darting among cycads. The collapse of competitors meant a free buffet of unclaimed roles. Suddenly the world is primed for a shift. You tread through the sandy alluvial plains where rivers cut wide channels. Around you, small theropods, like coelophyses, are already running in groups, picking off insects, scavenging corpses and nipping at anything they can bring down. They are thin, almost delicate, but relentless. Their sharp teeth flash as they tug at a fallen amphibian by the river's edge. These are survivors, quick to exploit what's left. The herbivorous side of things is thinner. The great ranxosaurs, once dominant plant eaters, are gone, and so the stage is set for the plant-munching dinosaurs to expand. Early prosauropods, such as Plateosaurus, are fading into history, but their descendants are already stirring. You see a small herd of early sauropodomorphs, long necks, stretched up toward the foliage, cautiously pulling at ginkgo leaves. They're modest in size, but in the coming millions of years this lineage will swell into the giants whose bones we find bridging valleys today. Step closer to the volcanic ridges at the heart of Pangaea, and you feel the ground tremble. The massive fissures that caused the extinction still crackle with heat. Rivers of lava not long ago poured through these lands, altering climates on a planetary scale. You rub ash from your face, noting how every creature alive now owes its chance to that catastrophe. Among the lowlands, amphibians still linger. Giant temnospondyls, the size of small cars, lie half submerged, gulping air. They once were apex predators, but now they are relics too sluggish to keep up with the evolving, fast-moving hunters around them. Crocodile relatives too are adapting, hugging swamps and shallows. Unlike the extinct phytosaurs, these crocodilomorphs are smaller, faster, better suited to seize the scraps of a changing world. The nights echo with insect hums and the shrill cries of pterosaurs overhead. They've been around since the late Triassic, but they too will stretch into new opportunities as skies open wider in the Jurassic. For now they are fragile flyers, wings thin like stretched leather drums. They dart after insects in the twilight, wings whispering against the air. Pause to take it in, the sense that history is pivoting. It is not that dinosaurs instantly become kings, it's that the old kings are dead, and the survivors with nimble limbs and hollow bones will slowly climb into those vacant thrones. The extinction was brutal, but it carved a ladder that dinosaurs are now scrambling up. You step around the carcass of a Sapien, its long snout caved in, ribs picked apart by scavengers. Its demise is symbolic. The reign of these crocodile-like monsters is over. In their place the future is written in small, feather-hinted creatures scurrying at your feet, squeaking as they bolt under conifer roots. Those proto-feathers, downy filaments to keep warm, are a clue. Dinosaurs aren't just here to fill niches, they're here to innovate. And so under the sweltering Pangaean sky, the story begins. The rise of the Jurassic giants, born from the ashes of extinction. Awaiting you continue across Pangaea, and the first thing you notice is the sheer size of this supercontinent. There are no familiar oceans dividing the land. Instead, the Earth's crust is gathered into one massive slab, stretching thousands of kilometers from pole to pole. The year is roughly 200 million BCE, and Pangaea dominates the globe like an enormous, misshapen jigsaw piece. Along its edges, new oceans are beginning to tear open, but inland, the land seems endless. You walk for days without reaching a coast, passing through deserts that shimmer under a brutal sun, then into seasonal wetlands that flood with sudden rains. The geography is raw and young, landscapes freshly torn by volcanic fissures and shifting tectonic plates. The climate here is unfamiliar to your modern senses. Much of Pangaea's heartland bakes under an arid regime, blistering summers followed by cool winters, but farther north and south, seasonal monsoons arrive in violent bursts, drenching the land in torrents that fill river valleys and cut canyons. Imagine rain hammering down so heavily that gullies form in hours, water carving grooves into red sandstone plains, before drying back to dust a week later. The cycle repeats endlessly, shaping not just the land but the evolution of everything living upon it. Even in the Jurassic's earliest days, greenhouse gases linger from the Triassic's massive volcanic outpourings. Carbon dioxide concentrations are perhaps 4 to 6 times higher than what you breathe today. This supercharged atmosphere means warmth dominates almost everywhere. Polar regions do exist, but they are mild compared to modern ice-bound poles. No glaciers lock away water. Instead, ferns, cycads, and conifers push far into latitudes you'd expect to see ice. The whole planet, from equator to pole, hums with a kind of greenhouse fever dream. Stand on a ridge, and the horizon is dotted with forests of conifers. Some are araucarias, with trunks thick as towers, and branches reaching out in candelabra shapes. Cycads grow in clusters, their palm-like fronds stiff in the breeze. Ginkgos unfurl broad fan-shaped leaves, and beneath them ferns and horsetails crowd damp soils. You smell resin and sap everywhere. These are forests rich in terpenes, pungent and sticky, buzzing with insect life. Insects, by the way, are booming. Beetles scuttle under bark, dragonflies zip across streams, and cicadas fill the air with deafening choruses. The skies above these forests are heavy with cloud banks. During the wet season, warm air masses rise and condense quickly, generating colossal storms. You probably won't survive standing out in one of them. Picture lightning splitting the sky in branching forks, rain pelting so thick you can barely see, winds bending entire trees until branches crack. The downpours flush nutrients into soils, feeding bursts of vegetation that in turn support herbivores. Then comes the dry season, scorching and unforgiving, with rivers shrinking into braided trickles. For animals, surviving means adapting to extremes, eating what you can during abundance, and enduring scarcity when drought returns. Around river deltas and coastlines, the geography is equally dramatic. Shallow seas creep into the land, flooding inlets and leaving behind salt flats when they evaporate. In these coastal lowlands, you hear the cries of marine reptiles surfacing for air. Ichthyosaurs, already sleek torpedo-shaped hunters, glide through shallow lagoons, while nothials and plesiosaurs stretch long necks above the waves. If you walk far enough east, the earliest stirrings of the Atlantic Ocean are just beginning to appear, a widening rift that will one day separate Africa from North America. For now it's a chain of rift valleys and volcanic basins, filled with lakes that glimmer like mirrors under the sun. Nightfall cools the land, but not much. You lie under a vast sky pierced by unfamiliar constellations. Remember, the stars themselves are the same, but the drift of continents means you're staring from a different vantage point. The Milky Way arcs brighter without modern light pollution. Overhead, pterosaurs wheel against the twilight, their wingspans modest compared to what's to come, but still impressive. They dive at fish in the rift lakes, making the water's surface ripple with splashes. The sound of chirps and shrieks carries far in the still air. And while the land feels alien, it pulses with ecological rules you can still recognize. Food chains, water cycles, predator and prey locked in eternal testing. Geography dictates these rules. Vast deserts in the interior limit where vegetation can thrive, forcing herbivores to follow seasonal floods. Along coasts, lush plant life offers abundance, but predators lurk in every shadow. Rivers, lakes, and volcanic valleys form migration corridors, where life crowds together and interactions intensify. As you trace these corridors, you realize how geography is destiny. Pangaea's very shape ensures few barriers between regions, allowing species to spread widely. A dinosaur hatched in what is now Morocco could, over generations, wander into what is now Canada. The connectivity fuels the dinosaur's expansion, but already cracks are forming. Those rift valleys you step over will widen into oceans, isolating populations, driving divergence, and setting up the evolutionary fireworks of the Middle and Late Jurassic. So here you are, standing on the living skin of a world in transition. The land is hot, stormy, shifting under tectonic stress. The seas are restless, The skies alive with winged reptiles. Every ridge smells of pine resin and volcanic dust. It is alien, yes, but strangely familiar too, because this geography is the canvas on which the Jurassic giants will soon paint their story. You push deeper into this new Jurassic world, and what draws your attention first are the forests. Vast, primeval and utterly different from the temperate woodlands you might know today. The air smells thickly of resin, a mix of pine sap and damp earth. Needles crunch under your feet, not leaves, because deciduous trees have not yet taken command of the planet. Instead, towering conifers dominate the skyline, their trunks straight and narrow, stretching 30 meters high before bursting into umbrella-like crowns. Araucarias, the so-called monkey puzzle trees, rise like colossal candelabres, their branches armored with sharp, spiky leaves. Beneath them, cycads sprout in clumps, short and squat with fronds stiff as plastic, their cones loaded with seeds. The light filters differently through these forests. The canopy is not a dense roof as in modern rainforests, but patchy, letting beams of sun pierce down in shafts of gold. The ground beneath is layered with ferns, horsetails and moss-like mats. Some of the horsetails grow as tall as you are, their segmented stalks shooting upward like green bamboo, while others cluster along muddy stream banks, their roots sucking up water greedily. The air hums with insect life, every trunk crawling with beetles, every flowerless branch a stage for buzzing dragonflies with wingspans as wide as a dinner plate. These are not quiet woods. At dawn, the chittering of pterosaurs pierces the air as they roost high in the trees. Their calls echo like the squeals of gulls, sharp and insistent. You glance up to see them leap from branches, wings unfurling in taut arcs of leathery membrane. They wheel above, hunting for fish in nearby rivers, or snapping at swarms of insects. Their silhouettes flicker against the morning sun, reminding you that the skies of the Jurassic are already claimed. Beneath this aerial chaos, herbivores work methodically through the greenery. Small sauropodomorphs move in loose herds, necks sweeping low across the undergrowth, then high as they pluck at ginkgo leaves. They are still modest by later standards, perhaps 4 or 5 meters long, but they travel in numbers, and the sound of their feet padding through leaf litter makes the forest floor tremble slightly. Their peg-like teeth scrape leaves from branches, and you hear the grinding gurgle of fermentation in their bellies, the earliest experiments in processing massive amounts of plant matter. Not far behind, smaller ornithischians scurry. These are the ancestors of the armored and horned dinosaurs to come, but for now they are small, bipedal, quick, and alert. Their tails balance as they dart between cycads, nipping at tender fronds. Every so often they freeze, heads tilting, listening for the approach of predators. Their world is a constant gamble between hunger and survival. Even in the plant kingdom there is an arms race underway. Conifers grow thick resin to trap insects. Cycads pack toxins into their seeds. Horsetails store silica in their stems, making them rough, sandpaper-like and hard on the teeth of grazers. Dinosaurs adapt with specialized jaws and stomachs, testing what can and cannot be eaten. You pick up a cycad cone and sniff its scent is musky, bitter, faintly poisonous. You'd spit it out instantly, but somewhere nearby a dinosaur gulps it down with little concern. The forest itself shifts with the seasons. In the wet months, streams overflow, creating swampy pockets where mosses flourish and horsetails grow thick. In the dry months, the undergrowth withers, and fires sparked by lightning sweep through. The air fills with smoke, and flames climb tree trunks, clearing patches of land. Yet the plants are resilient. Within weeks, green shoots return, ferns unrolling like coiled springs across the blackened soil. Life is always resetting, always reclaiming. You pause by a riverbank, shaded by ginkgo trees. Their fan-shaped leaves flutter in the breeze, soft and delicate, a contrast to the armored look of cycads. These trees, you realize, are survivors. They will still be here 200 million years later, lining streets in modern cities, witnesses to every extinction and every rise since the Jurassic dawn. Their continuity is eerie, a reminder that while animals come and go, some plants simply endure. Lean closer to the river and you see amphibians lurking in the shallows. They are smaller now than their Triassic ancestors, but still formidable, their eyes glinting above the surface like periscopes. Dragonflies hover above, darting to snap up mosquitoes, and in the water itself, fish flash silver, scattering as a pterosaur swoops down with a splash. The forest is not just vertical, it is a layered world, with action in the canopy, the undergrowth, the soil and the streams. What makes these Jurassic forests remarkable is how they fuel everything. Without grasses, those won't evolve for tens of millions of years. These conifers and cycads are the fuel that powers sauropods toward gigantism. Each tree is a living gas pump, pouring energy into the system through tough leaves, seeds and resinous cones. Each fern bed is a buffet. The herbivores adapt, growing longer necks, stronger jaws and more efficient guts. The carnivores adapt in turn, sharpening their senses to track the great plant eaters. The forest is both cradle and battlefield, a place of quiet rustling leaves and sudden violent ends. As the day closes, the forest glows in the low sun, shadows long across the fern beds. Resin drips from conifer bark, trapping unwary insects in amber droplets. That resin, if you pocketed it, might survive until modern times, preserving its tiny prisoner in eternal suspension. And as night falls, the chorus of insects grows deafening. Pterosaurs roost in the crowns, and the small mammals you barely notice scurry from their burrows, taking their place in this intricate web. The first Jurassic forests are not simply scenery, they are the stage, the pantry, the fortress, and the trap. They are the foundation upon which the Jurassic giants will build their empire. The forests are alive, yes, but to understand the Jurassic at its beginning, you need to step out into the open floodplains where a greater mix of life converges. Here in the margins between forests and water, the animal kingdom gathers in staggering variety, and it isn't just dinosaurs yet, far from it. The Jurassic still belongs to an eclectic crowd of survivors and pioneers. You crouch near the edge of a slow-moving river, watching ripples curl across the surface. A shadow passes beneath the water, long and undulating. Then, with a sudden lunge, a crocodile-like reptile bursts upward, jaws clamping down on an unlucky fish. This is no modern crocodile, though it shares a family tree. Crocodilomorphs of the early Jurassic are diverse, some already semi-aquatic like their modern kin, others racing across land on long gracile limbs. They snap and hiss, their eyes glinting in the sunlight. They are reminders that crocodiles will endure nearly unchanged for 200 million years, watching empires of animals rise and fall. But shift your gaze, and you see something entirely different on the riverbank. A group of early mammals, each the size of a mouse, scampering from burrow to burrow. They are tiny, furry, sharp-toothed insect eaters, their whiskers twitching as they forage at dusk. You hardly notice them at first, because they move in shadows, and live mostly by night. Their ancestors had survived the Triassic extinction by keeping small and clever, by slipping under the radar of predators. They will remain in this supporting role for over 100 million years, but make no mistake, these creatures are the ancestors of every mammal alive today, including you. You owe them everything. Above you, the sky is cut by leathery wings. Chrysosaurs are no longer rare curiosities. They are widespread, agile, and competitive. Their wing bones are hollow, yet strong, anchored by a long fourth finger that supports the entire stretch of membrane. You watch one swoop low over the water, jaws lined with needle-like teeth snapping at fish. Its wings stir the air, and the downdraft brushes your face. They are awkward on the ground, stumbling on all fours, but in the air they are kings. The skies now hum with their presence, an aerial layer of the ecosystem as significant as the forests beneath. And then there are the dinosaurs themselves. At this point in the Jurassic, they are not yet the undisputed rulers, but they are fast gaining ground. Small theropods, slender carnivores like Dilophosaurus prowl the edges of the woodlands. They are tall, bipedal and lean, their tails balancing as they move with a predator's grace. Their two thin crests, arching like twin ridges along the top of their skulls, are as much display as they are weapon, brightly colored, perhaps to signal dominance or attract mates. One darts from the shadows now, jaws snapping at a small ornithischian. The chase is short, brutal, and decisive. Dust rises, the prey shrieks, and silence falls again. You probably won't survive if one of them fixes its golden eyes on you. Yet the ecosystem is not all teeth and claws. Along the shorelines you see clusters of amphibians, not the giant rulers of the Triassic, but smaller survivors, slimy, croaking, clinging to niches where reptiles can't quite dislodge them. They sing in the night, their calls echoing across the wetlands. Insects respond with their own buzzing drones, creating a constant white noise that fills the air. The mix of fauna here is strange, because it is transitional. It is not yet the golden age of dinosaurs, but neither is it the age of reptiles past. Instead, it is a patchwork quilt: crocodile relatives and pterosaurs, early mammals and amphibians, theropods and sauropodomorphs, all sharing the same muddy riverbanks. Each group is probing at opportunity, testing survival strategies in a world with room to spare after extinction cleared the slate. As dusk deepens, the air cools slightly, and animals stir more boldly. You hear splashing upriver, perhaps a group of Anchisaurus, small sauropodomorphs, wading through the shallows to strip horsetails. Their long necks stretch like cranes, plucking greenery before moving on. They are awkwardly between worlds, too large to hide, too small to dominate, but they represent the seed of what is to come. Soon, their descendants will grow immense, capable of clearing treetops with ease. Suddenly, a flock of pterosaurs bursts from the trees in a panicked storm of wings. Something has disturbed them. You turn, heart hammering, and catch sight of movement among the conifers. A larger theropod, perhaps 5 meters long, pushing through the undergrowth. It pauses, lifts its head, and exhales a hiss that vibrates in your chest. Then it vanishes again, leaving only rustling branches in its wake. The food chains here are raw and immediate, every interaction a roll of the evolutionary dice. You crouch low, realizing that you are standing at the intersection of lineages that will define the next 100 million years. The mammals will bide their time in shadows, the crocodiles will hold their ground in rivers, the pterosaurs will rule the skies, and the dinosaurs, still humble compared to their future selves, are beginning to stretch into their roles as giants. The early Jurassic fauna is not simply variety for its own sake, it is competition, coexistence, and relentless experimentation. This mix of creatures is the crucible in which the giants are forged. The riverbanks and forests echo with diversity, but if you focus closely, you begin to notice a certain lineage standing apart. These are the proto-sauropods, the ancestors of the true giants, creatures that will one day dominate the Jurassic landscape. For now they are small by comparison, but their features are unmistakable, early steps in a march towards size records the Earth will never forget. You hear them before you see them. The rhythmic crunch of heavy feet pressing into damp soil, the creak of trees as foliage is stripped away. A herd of Vulcanodon emerges from the edge of a conifer grove, their long necks swaying slowly above cycads. Each one is about 6 to 7 meters long, already larger than most predators around them, though still tiny when compared to the titans of later ages. Their legs are columnar, more like tree trunks than the splayed limbs of reptiles that came before. These aren't creatures built to sprint or pounce, they are built to carry weight, and lots of it. Their skulls are small, with simple peg-shaped teeth, designed not for chewing but for stripping leaves. You watch as one rears up slightly, balancing on hind legs, to rake foliage from a branch. The sound is steady, repetitive, snap, crunch, swallow. They don't chew, instead, plant matter slides down into an enormous gut where fermentation does the work. You can almost hear the slow churn of their stomachs, a living compost heap breaking down conifer needles and fibrous ferns. These early sauropodomorphs still bear traces of their ancestors. Their necks, though long, are not yet the monumental cranes of their descendants. Their tails, though heavy, are not yet sweeping weapons. And their size, while imposing for the early Jurassic, is only the beginning of what evolution has in store. Yet every feature hints at direction. Longer strides, more efficient breathing, and bodies sculpted by natural selection to explore the ceiling of biological possibility. They move together in herds, a strategy that offers protection against predators. You notice smaller individuals tucked into the center of the group, shielded by the larger adults. Their eyes watch the tree line warily, because while few theropods dare challenge an adult, juveniles are fair game. It is a strategy you'd recognize in elephants today, a reminder that size and social living are ancient companions. Predators still try. You watch a shadow slip between conifers, a theropod no larger than a modern wolf, testing the edges of the herd. It creeps closer, tail stiff, jaws parted slightly in anticipation, but the sauropodomorphs shift, stamping the ground, tails flicking. The predator hesitates, then vanishes back into the brush. The lesson is clear. These creatures are already too large, too united, to be taken lightly. As you study them, you realize that they carry another advantage besides size: an efficient respiratory system. Hollow chambers line their vertebrae, the first hints of the pneumatic structures that will later fill their bodies with air sacs. This adaptation makes them lighter for their bulk, and allows them to take in oxygen with remarkable efficiency. It is one of the secrets that will let their descendants grow to unimaginable lengths, breathing like birds rather than reptiles. Their lungs act like bellows, moving air in a continuous cycle. Each step you hear is not just weight, it is engineering. And so, you watch this herd slowly transform the landscape around them, trees bear scars where branches have been stripped, fern beds are flattened by their passage. Cycads stand gnawed and ragged. They are not yet the ecological bulldozers of the late Jurassic, but the blueprint is forming. The world is adjusting to their presence. Plants evolving tougher defenses, predators recalibrating their strategies. There is something almost hypnotic in their movement. They do not rush, they simply persist, heads swinging in arcs, feet pressing rhythm into the soil. You probably won't survive long if you stumble into their path. One careless step, and you'd be flattened, yet within their calm plodding lies the seed of future domination. At dusk the herd settles in a clearing. Adults stand in a circle, tails outward, while juveniles huddle inside. This is not intelligence in the mammalian sense, but instinct sculpted by generations of survival. The night deepens, and insects sing, but the herd remains still, massive bodies radiating heat. A predator might prowl at the edge, but the message is clear: challenge us if you dare. These sauropod ancestors, like Vulcanodon or Anchisaurus, will never achieve the fame of their later relatives. Their bones are fewer, their shapes less dramatic, but they are the prototypes, the first experiments in gigantism. Standing among them you feel the tug of inevitability. Evolution has opened a door, and these creatures are stepping through. The ground shakes under their slow march, and you realize this is only the beginning of the age of giants. You leave the steady march of the protosauropods behind, and follow the trail of something very different. Hunters. If the long-necked herbivores represent patience and endurance, the carnivores of the early Jurassic embody speed, agility and teeth. The air is tense here, every rustle of leaves or crack of twig a warning that predators are close. The forest opens to a dry floodplain, and there it is, Dilophosaurus, nearly 7 meters long, slender but imposing. It strides across the open ground with its twin crests, catching the sun. Those crests, delicate, thin ridges of bone, are not for combat, but for display. Perhaps they are brightly colored, flushed with reds or yellows, a signal to rivals or mates. To you they look almost ceremonial, like a crown warning all who see it that this is no ordinary hunter. Theropods of the early Jurassic are not all giants. Some, like Coelophysis, remain smaller, swift-footed hunters that stalk in packs. You see them skittering along riverbanks, darting after lizards and small mammals. Their strategy is different, overwhelming prey with numbers. They may not yet rival the massive predators of later eras, but they are specialists, thriving in niches where size is not the only advantage. In the distance, a small herd of Scutellosaurus, early armored dinosaurs, moves cautiously across the floodplain. They are no larger than turkeys, but their backs are lined with rows of tiny bony plates, primitive armor against just such predators. They freeze when the theropod steps closer, tails stiff, bodies low. For a moment, there is silence. Then the Dilophosaurus bolts forward, long legs kicking up dust. The herd scatters, squealing as they dart for cover. One is too slow. The predator lunges, jaws clamping down, and the struggle is over almost instantly. Blood stains the sand, and the theropod lifts its kill, shaking it once before trotting off. The chase was swift, clinical, brutal, life and death measured in seconds. It pauses, nostrils flaring as it scents the air. Its arms are short but tipped with sharp claws, and its jaws lined with serrated teeth flex as it lets out a rasping hiss. You crouch low, heart racing. This is no lumbering beast. This is a predator finely tuned for pursuit, built for lunging and tearing. It turns its head slightly, golden eyes scanning, before resuming its prowl. You probably won't survive if it decides you're worth testing. You watch a pair of theropods interact near a shallow lake. They circle one another, jaws snapping, crests flashing. This isn't combat for food, it's likely rivalry for territory or mating. Their movements are jerky, cautious, then explosive, tails whipping for balance. After a tense standoff, one yields, trotting away with a frustrated hiss. The victor lifts its head high, crest glowing in the low sun. Displays and singles, color, sound, posture are as much weapons as claws and teeth. Even the small predators hold their place in this world. You spot a creature no larger than a chicken darting through the undergrowth. Its teeth glint as it snaps up an insect. Quick, feather-like filaments shimmer along its body. Primitive insulation rather than full feathers, but enough to hint at the warm-blooded future. These little hunters are shadows of the great line that will eventually give rise to birds. In their sharp eyes and darting heads, you glimpse an echo of modern sparrows and crows. The diversity among these carnivores is staggering. Some are slender, long-legged sprinters, Others are bulkier, experimenting with strength and power. Each one is a test case in evolution's ongoing experiment. Over millions of years they will branch into every form imaginable, from the feathered raptors of the Cretaceous to the towering Allosaurus that will dominate the late Jurassic. But here in this moment, they are already masters of precision. Predators shape this ecosystem as much as plants or herbivores. Every herd of sauropodomorphs moves warily because of them. Every small mammal scurries underground because of them. Even pterosaurs, masters of the skies, swoop cautiously, aware that a leap from below could end them. The theropods are the sharpened edge of evolution, a reminder that survival here is not only about eating but about avoiding being eaten. Night falls, and the predators adapt again. Their silhouettes stalk under the moonlight, senses sharp. You hear calls echo across the plains, short, rasping, almost bark-like. They are not roars in the cinematic sense, but they carry weight, marking presence. You imagine hearing one in the dark, and knowing you are prey. As you lie low in the ferns, listening to the crunch of footsteps moving ever closer, you understand that the rise of giants was never just about the herbivores. It was forged in the shadow of hunters, sleek, relentless, and always hungry. Morning light spills across the land, and you drift toward the lifeblood of this Jurassic world. Rivers and lakes, everything, plants, animals, predators, and prey, converges here. The sound of rushing water is constant, trickling from upland springs, swelling into braided channels, and finally spreading into broad deltas. The air is heavy with humidity, buzzing with insects, carrying the earthy smell of mud and wet vegetation. You kneel at the edge of a stream and watch as it teems with activity. This is the crossroads of ecosystems. The banks are soft, layered with silt from repeated floods. Herds of early sauropodomorphs leave deep impressions in the mud, round footprints that will one day fossilize into stone and puzzle paleontologists. Millions of years later, they bend their long necks to drink, tongues flicking at the water's edge. Each sip sends ripples outward, disturbing schools of fish below. The fish are not yet the familiar kinds you know today, but primitive ray-finned forms, scales flashing silver in the sun as they dart to safety. Amphibians lurk just beneath the surface, temnospondyl holdovers, smaller now than in the Triassic but still formidable. Their wide heads break the surface briefly as they gulp air, then vanish in a splash. Their throaty croaks echo through the wetlands at dusk, a sound as ancient as any heartbeat. These amphibians are survivors, clinging to habitats that remain damp and shaded. They are not kings anymore, but they still command respect in the water. The rivers also host the crocodile relatives. One slides silently beneath the water, eyes and nostrils just above the surface. Its body is long and lithe, built for ambush. You lean closer, and with an explosion of water, it lunges, jaws snapping at a fish near the bank. The sound of teeth on bone echoes, and the water reddens. The reptile twists, swallowing whole before sinking again into stillness. You probably won't survive standing too close. One wrong step and you'd be dragged under in seconds. On sandbars, pterosaurs gather. They wade clumsily, wings folded, long jaws probing for fish or invertebrates. Their wings stretch when startled, sending sprays of droplets into the air as they leap upward. Their shadows skim across the water, confusing schools of fish into frantic motion. Some pterosaurs hover briefly, dipping into the surface like modern seabirds before veering away with wriggling prey clamped in their beaks. Life along the waterways is not just about feeding, it's about survival strategy. Herbivores come for water, but predators come for herbivores. You watch a herd of Ankylosaurus cautiously approach a lake. They lower their necks, drinking quickly, their eyes never leaving the tree line. It's a dangerous ritual. A ripple in the water could mean a crocodile relative. A rustle in the reeds could mean a theropod waiting to strike. They drink nervously, gulping and stepping back, a choreography rehearsed over millions of years. The lakes themselves are laboratories of change. Volcanic activity in the rift valleys creates deep basins filled with fresh water. These lakes are temporary in geological terms, lasting only tens of thousands of years before silting in or drying out. But while they last, they are magnets for life. You imagine standing by one such rift lake as a storm gathers. Thunder booms, rain pelts, and within hours the water rises, flooding banks, shifting habitats. Then, just as quickly the rains stop, and the sun returns, baking the mud into cracked, hard mosaics. Survival here means riding these swings of abundance and scarcity. At night, the water glows faintly under the moon, fireflies skim the reeds, and frogs croak in rhythmic chorus. Somewhere in the distance, a theropod's call echoes, deep and guttural, and the herds stiffen, tails rigid. The river is no longer a sanctuary but a trap. A shadow moves along the bank, long, low, deliberate. You can feel the tension in the air, every creature aware of the hunter's presence. Yet, for all its danger, the waterways are where ecosystems thrive most richly. Without them, the forests would wither, the herds would scatter, the hunters would starve. They are arteries pulsing through Pangaea, delivering life to every creature. Plants along their margins grow lush, supporting insects, which in turn feed fish, and amphibians, which feed reptiles and pterosaurs, which ultimately circle back into the great cycles of predator and prey. The rivers and lakes of the early Jurassic are not just watering holes, they are engines. They power survival, migration, growth, and death. They shape the very behavior of the giants to come. You realize as you watch sauropodomorphs lifting their necks to the moonlight and pterosaurs gliding over the water's dark sheen, that without these habitats, the Jurassic giants could never rise. You follow the rivers upward into the cliffs, where wind whips across open ridges, and suddenly the landscape belongs not to the ground but to the sky. You look up, and for a moment you forget the lumbering sauropods and prowling theropods, because the air is alive with pterosaurs. These winged reptiles are the undisputed rulers of the atmosphere, claiming the dimension above your head with wings that stretch wider than your arms could ever reach. The pair of Dimorphodons swoops past, their wings translucent in the sun, each beat a sharp ripple of muscle and bone. Their wings are not feathers but membranes, thin skin stretched taut across an elongated fourth finger. The structure looks fragile, but in motion it is anything but. Each downstroke is efficient, every glide perfectly balanced. The sound is like fabric snapping in the wind. They perch on nearby cliffs, clambering awkwardly with all four limbs, heads bobbing. You can't help but notice their skulls, short, deep, with teeth like needles, perfect for snagging fish or snapping up insects. One lets out a loud, cawing cry that echoes down the canyon walls, startling smaller creatures below. Their calls are not melodic, they are harsh, guttural, and insistent, a reminder that this sky is theirs. You probably won't survive long if one of these aerial hunters mistakes you for intruding on its nest. Their beaks could pierce, their claws could rake, and their dive is swift and merciless. From the air they control every movement beneath. The skies above the early Jurassic are not crowded yet, but they are contested. Dragonflies buzz near the water's surface, wings flashing in the sun. Small feathered insects scatter as pterosaurs swoop close. Birds are still tens of millions of years away, so pterosaurs own this world without rivals. Some soar for hours riding thermals, while others flutter short distances between trees. Diversity is already blooming, long-tailed forms, short-tailed ones, big-eyed nocturnal hunters, and daytime fishers. Near a cliff ledge, you spot a nesting colony. Pterosaurs crowd together, eggs nestled in scrapes of sand and rock. Their bodies press close, wings folded, as they guard their fragile offspring. Hatchlings, barely the size of sparrows, scurry about, already equipped with functional wings. Unlike modern birds, these babies don't wait weeks to fly. They launch almost immediately, fragile but fierce, because in this world, hesitation means death. The feeding strategies you observe are as varied as their forms. Some dive into rivers, emerging with wriggling fish. Others snap insects from the air, their teeth clicking in mid-flight. Still others prowl beaches like stilt-legged herons, stabbing into mud for crustaceans. At dusk their silhouettes swarm the horizon, blotting out the setting sun in a ragged tapestry of wings. Their dominance isn't just biology, it's engineering. Their bones are hollow, lightweight but strong, honeycombed with struts. Their chest muscles anchor to a keeled sternum, giving them immense power for takeoff. Their metabolism is high, their bodies warm, and their stamina seemingly endless. Evolution has opened a new frontier. The sky and the pterosaurs have claimed it with every adaptation possible. Yet they remain vulnerable when grounded. You watch as one pterosaur lands to rest by the water, folding its wings carefully. A small theropod bursts from the undergrowth, teeth flashing. The pterosaur screeches, lunges forward clumsily, then scrams into the air at the last second, beating its wings frantically. It escapes, but not without losing a chunk of flesh. Survival means staying airborne, always a few beats ahead of the hunters below. At night the aerial drama shifts. Some pterosaurs roost high in the trees, others cling to cliff faces, their bodies blending into rock and shadow. Their cries mingle with the night chorus of frogs and insects. The moonlight glints on their wings as they shift uneasily, always wary of what prowls in the darkness beneath. Standing in the canyon, Watching hundreds of wings gliding across the twilight, you realize this is not just spectacle, it's dominance. The ground has its hunters and grazers, but above, the skies belong entirely to these leathery winged rulers. For tens of millions of years they will glide unchallenged, lords of an empire built not on claws and teeth, but on the mastery of air. As you move away from the rivers and cliffs where pterosaurs wheel above, your eyes are drawn downward, into the brush, the burrows, the hidden corners of this Jurassic landscape, because here in the shadows of giants and hunters, something small scurries, something that seems unimportant at first glance. These are the early mammals, creatures no bigger than your hand, yet destined to rewrite the future of life on Earth. You crouch low, brushing aside ferns, and there, darting between horsetails, you spot one. It looks like a shrew, its body furred, nose twitching as it probes the soil. Its teeth are sharp and differentiated, incisors, canines, molars, all specialized for cutting, grinding and tearing. This is the quiet revolution of mammals, jaws designed for versatility. Where dinosaurs strip leaves or slice flesh, mammals nibble insects, seeds, and worms with delicate precision. Their teeth will one day allow everything from grazing cattle to gnawing rodents to exist, but here it is just enough to keep a tiny body alive. The little creature pauses, ears swiveling. It listens constantly, every muscle taut, because danger is everywhere. You hear a rustle behind, a small theropod nosing through the brush, and instantly the mammal vanishes into a burrow. It is a master of retreat, slipping into the earth where larger hunters cannot follow. You probably won't survive long if you linger in the open like it does. Without claws, armor, or size, you would be prey too. But with fur, warm blood, and cunning senses, these mammals carve out a living on the margins. Their world is nocturnal. When night falls, and the great dinosaurs slow, the mammals come alive. They emerge from burrows, whiskers quivering, and begin their search for food. Insects buzz, beetles crawl, worms squirm under the soil, and the mammals devour them all with sharp efficiency. Their metabolism demands constant fuel, so they forage tirelessly, guided by smell and sound more than sight. Their eyes shine faintly in the moonlight, adapted to dim conditions. You follow one as it scampers under a fallen log, sniffing at fungi and nibbling a cricket. Its movements are jerky, nervous, but purposeful. There is intelligence here. Mammals already show problem-solving behaviors, knowing when to retreat, when to forage, when to risk. Their brains, proportionally larger than those of reptiles, allow them to navigate a more complex world. While dinosaurs rely on sheer size or brute strength, mammals rely on strategy. Each decision when to move, where to dig, how to hide, means the difference between survival and extinction. You notice their fur, a dense covering that holds warmth. This is another secret advantage. In the chill of Jurassic nights, while reptiles cool and slow, mammals stay active, their bodies burning energy to maintain steady heat. It gives them hours of opportunity when predators grow sluggish. Imagine an insect-rich night where only mammals hunt, capitalizing on a resource ignored by larger, colder neighbors. Over millions of years, this will prove decisive. Their reproduction too gives them an edge. Small litters, nurtured carefully, mean fewer offspring but greater survival. Mothers nurse their young with milk, a liquid packed with fat and protein. It is costly, but it builds strong, resilient infants. The bond between mother and young is unlike anything in the reptile world. In this hidden nursery beneath the soil, evolution is shaping the intimacy that will one day define human families. Occasionally, you see glimpses of stranger forms among these early mammals. Some glide short distances between trees, skins stretched in membranes like primitive flying squirrels. Others have elongated snouts for rooting insects, or broad jaws for crunching seeds. The variety is subtle, but it is there, the first hints of the massive radiation to come. Still, their lives are fragile. You watch one stray too far from cover, a shadow darts, a small theropod pounces and the mammal squeals once before silence swallows it. The rest of the colony freezes, whiskers twitching, then retreats underground. This is their lot for now, to endure, to wait, to survive in the margins while giants thunder above. But you realize, crouched in the dirt, that this strategy is genius. While great lineages rise and fall, the mammals persist quietly, never drawing too much attention, never risking too much. Their reward will not come in the Jurassic, nor the Cretaceous, but after the thunder lizards finally fall. When that time comes, these tiny survivors will be ready to take the stage. For now though, the mammals are whispers in the dark. Small, sharp and hidden, They scurry through roots and shadows, laying the foundation for a future they cannot yet imagine, and as you watch their delicate footprints vanish into the mud, you feel a quiet certainty. This is the true beginning of your own story. The shadows of the mammal burrows fade behind you, and soon the ground begins to tremble under something far larger. You turn your head, and there it is, what every other creature in this world must acknowledge, the first of the true sauropod giants. These are no longer the tentative proto-sauropods you watched strip leaves. These are the pioneers of gigantism, the ancestors who begin to test the absolute limits of body size on land. From the forest edge steps Cetiosaurus, its immense frame blotting out the trees behind it. At nearly 15 meters in length, it dwarfs the theropods that once ruled. Its neck arcs gracefully, sweeping upward and outward like a living crane, while its tail drags a wide groove in the soil. The ground vibrates with each slow, deliberate step, the sound of weight pressing down with an authority no predator dares to challenge. Its skull is small, almost comically so compared to the massive barrel of its body, but its teeth, simple pegs, are perfect for stripping vast amounts of plant matter. You watch as it moves deliberately through a conifer grove, each swing of its head clearing branches, each bite a bundle of needles it swallows whole, sending the greenery into a gut that churns like a fermentation vat, breaking down fiber over hours. The air fills with the sound of tearing, crunching, and the deep gurgle of digestion. You probably won't survive standing under its shadow. One careless step from those pillar-like legs, and you would be flattened into the mud. Yet the sauropod pays you no attention. Its world is made of trees and leaves, not fragile little creatures at its feet. What strikes you is the scale of its appetite. A single giant like this consumes hundreds of pounds of vegetation each day. Multiply that by a herd, and you see how profoundly these creatures reshape their environment. Forests bear scars where branches are stripped bare, cycads left gnawed down to stumps, ferns crushed under their feet. These sauropods are not just animals, they are ecosystem engineers, bulldozing through landscapes and forcing plants to adapt with tougher leaves, higher toxins or faster growth. Watch the herd, and you see their strategy is size itself. There are no sharp horns, no heavy armor, their defense is mass, pure and simple. Predators do not challenge adults because the risk is too high. A single kick from one of those columnar legs could shatter bone. Even their tails, long and muscular, sweep like whips when threatened. It is only the young that are vulnerable, and so they stay close to the herd's center, surrounded by a fortress of towering adults. The sauropods' bodies are miracles of engineering. Their skeletons are laced with air sacs, reducing weight and fueling their massive lungs. Their hearts must pump with enormous force to push blood to their heads, and their necks, though immense, are supported by a complex system of ligaments and vertebrae. It is as if evolution asked, how far can land animals go? And the answer began here. Yet for all their size, they are peaceful. Their days are cycles of grazing, walking, drinking, and resting. You follow them as they wade into a lake, the waterline rising up their bodies. They drink deeply, lowering heads that cast ripples across the surface. Fish scatter at their presence. Pterosaurs wheel overhead, but nothing disturbs them. Their mass itself is sanctuary. Evening falls, and you watch the herd move across the plains. The silhouettes of their necks cut across the orange sky like the masts of living ships, gliding steadily toward the horizon. Their calls, deep, resonant rumbles, vibrate through your chest. It is not song but communication. Mothers calling to young individuals, keeping contact in low tones too deep for smaller animals to hear. The sound is both eerie and majestic, a voice only giants can carry. As the stars emerge overhead, you realize you are witnessing the dawn of an age defined by size. These sauropods are not yet the titans of later Jurassic periods, but they are the first true step into that territory. Their descendants will stretch twice, even 3 times as long, and weigh more than a dozen elephants. But already, the earth itself is bending around them, forests yielding, rivers accommodating, predators adjusting. The rise of the giant sauropods marks a turning point. No other lineage on land has attempted what they are attempting, to grow so large that nothing dares oppose them. And as they lumber into the night, necks swaying like pendulums, you realize that the Jurassic is no longer just a world of survivors. It is a world of experiments, and this experiment, sheer unrelenting size, is one that will succeed spectacularly. The earth still quivers from the departing sauropod herd, but the silence does not last. The shadows lengthen, and from those shadows, the hunters emerge. If the giants claim the day with their size, then the theropods claim the dusk with their cunning and their teeth. You spot movement along a ridge, a sleek silhouette, lean and muscular. This is an early Jurassic theropod, larger now than its Triassic ancestors, more refined, more dangerous. Perhaps it is Sianosaurus or another close relative of Dilophosaurus. Its body length approaches 7 meters, its head heavy with serrated teeth, its eyes keen in the fading light. It walks with the casual confidence of an apex predator, every step deliberate, tail counterbalancing its long strides. The air itself feels tense around it. It pauses to sniff the ground, nostrils wide. These hunters are not random killers, they track. Scent, sight, sound, every detail feeds into the hunt. A low growl escapes its throat, vibrating across the stones. You duck low instinctively. You probably won't survive if one of these theropods decides to test its hunger against you. Their jaws can shear flesh, their claws tear muscle, and their speed closes distance faster than your feet ever could. Ahead, a small group of Anchisaurus feeds at the tray line, unaware of the danger. They nibble at cycads, tails swaying gently, necks bent. The theropod crouches low, muscles coiled like springs. For a long moment it waits. Then, in a burst of power, it charges. Dust sprays from under its feet. The Anchisaurus scatter, squealing, tails whipping, as they dash for cover. One is too slow. The predator lunges, jaws snapping shut around its flank. A cry echoes across the plain, then cuts short. The theropod shakes its prey violently, then drags it aside, feeding with bloody efficiency. The kill attracts attention. Smaller scavengers, perhaps Coelophysis, appear from the brush, circling nervously. They dart forward, snapping at scraps, then retreat as the larger predator lashes its tail. Pterosaurs swoop low, screeching as they try to steal a morsel. Even crocodile-like reptiles nose forward from the river, drawn by the scent of blood. This is how the theropods shape the ecosystem, not just by hunting, but by feeding entire chains of scavengers that follow in their wake. Over the next millions of years, theropods will diversify astonishingly. Some will grow even larger, becoming apex predators that rival sauropods in power. Others will shrink, adapting to hunt in packs or chase swift prey. Some will even sprout feathers, beginning the long march toward birds. But here in the early Jurassic, the blueprint is already visible: speed, jaws, and endless adaptability. Watch long enough, and you see differences even among these carnivores. Some rely on ambush, waiting patiently near waterholes. Others prefer open pursuit, chasing prey until exhaustion fells it. Their bodies reflect their methods. Some with longer legs for running, others with deeper jaws for crushing, still others with crests or horns for display. Evolution is tinkering constantly, testing which designs will hold. You notice a pair of theropods circling one another near a rocky outcrop. They bare their teeth, tails stiff, crests flaring with color. They hiss and snap. But this is not hunting, it is courtship or rivalry. Displays of dominance decide who mates, who eats first, who leads. Strength and intimidation are as crucial as killing skills. One finally yields, backing off with a frustrated grunt, leaving the victor to strut proudly. Night deepens, and their calls echo across the plain. They are not the cinematic roars you might imagine, but rasping croaks, low rumbles and piercing shrieks. Each sound carries meaning, warning, intimidation, communication with others of their kind. The darkness thrums with their voices, and every herbivore that hears them stiffens with fear. And yet, theropods are not invincible. You watch as one young hunter misjudges its attack on a herd of sauropodomorphs. It lunges too soon, and an adult's tail lashes out, striking its side with bone-breaking force. The predator collapses, hissing in pain, as the herd flees. Even kings of the food chain risk everything with every hunt. Still, they persist. For every failure, there is another kill. For every scar, another chance. Their lineage thrives because they adapt endlessly, exploiting every weakness in prey, every gap in opportunity. They are the blade that sharpens the herbivores, forcing them into herds, into size, into strategies of survival. Without the theropods, the giants would never rise so high. So you crouch in the brush, listening to the crunch of bones as the predator feeds, the distant cries of scavengers, and the eerie stillness of prey too afraid to move. The world of the Jurassic is balanced on this edge of tooth and claw, and the theropods are the ones who tip the scale. The earth still quivers from the departing sauropod herd, but the silence does not last. The shadows lengthen, and from those shadows the hunters emerge. If the giants claim the day with their size, then the theropods claim the dusk with their cunning and their teeth. You spot movement along a ridge, a sleek silhouette, lean and muscular. This is an early Jurassic theropod, larger now than its Triassic ancestors, more refined, more dangerous. Perhaps it is Sinosaurus or another, close relative of Dilophosaurus. Its body length approaches 7 meters, its head heavy with serrated teeth, its eyes keen in the fading light. It walks with the casual confidence of an apex predator, every step deliberate, tail counterbalancing its long strides. The air itself feels tense around it. It pauses to sniff the ground, nostrils wide. These hunters are not random killers, they track. Scent, sight, sound, every detail feeds into the hunt. A low growl escapes its throat, vibrating across the stones. You duck low instinctively. You probably won't survive if one of these theropods decides to test its hunger against you. Their jaws can shear flesh, their claws tear muscle, and their speed closes distance faster than your feet ever could. Ahead, a small group of Ankylosaurus feeds at the tray line, unaware of the danger. They nibble at cycads, tails swaying gently, necks bent. The theropod crouches low, muscles coiled like springs. For a long moment it waits. Then, in a burst of power, it charges. Dust sprays from under its feet. The Ankylosaurus scatter, squealing, tails whipping as they dash for cover. One is too slow. The predator lunges, jaws snapping shut around its flank. A cry echoes across the plain, then cuts short. The theropod shakes its prey violently, then drags it aside, feeding with bloody efficiency. The kill attracts attention. Smaller scavengers, perhaps Colophysis, appear from the brush, circling nervously. They dart forward, snapping at scraps, then retreat as the larger predator lashes its tail. Pterosaurs swoop low, screeching as they try to steal a morsel. Even crocodile-like reptiles nose forward from the river, drawn by the scent of blood. This is how the theropods shape the ecosystem, not just by hunting, but by feeding entire chains of scavengers that follow in their wake. Over the next millions of years, theropods will diversify astonishingly. Some will grow even larger, becoming apex predators that rival sauropods in power. Others will shrink, adapting to hunt in packs or chase swift prey. Some will even sprout feathers, beginning the long march toward birds. But here, in the early Jurassic, the blueprint is already visible. Speed, jaws, and endless adaptability. Watch long enough, and you see differences even among these carnivores. Some rely on ambush, waiting patiently near waterholes. Others prefer open pursuit, chasing prey until exhaustion fells it. Their bodies reflect their methods. Some with longer legs for running, others with deeper jaws for crushing, still others with crests or horns for display. Evolution is tinkering constantly, testing which designs will hold. You notice a pair of theropods circling one another near a rocky outcrop. They bare their teeth, tails stiff, crests flaring with color. They hiss and snap, but this is not hunting, it is courtship or rivalry. Displays of dominance decide who mates, who eats first, who leads. Strength and intimidation are as crucial as killing skills. One finally yields, backing off with a frustrated grunt, leaving the victor to strut proudly. Night deepens, and their calls echo across the plain. They are not the cinematic roars you might imagine, but rasping croaks, low rumbles, and piercing shrieks. Each sound carries meaning, warning, intimidation, communication with others of their kind. The darkness thrums with their voices, and every herbivore that hears them stiffens with fear. And yet theropods are not invincible. You watch as one young hunter misjudges its attack on a herd of sauropodomorphs. It lunges too soon, and an adult's tail lashes out, striking its side with bone-breaking force. The predator collapses, hissing in pain, as the herd flees. Even kings of the food chain risk everything with every hunt. Still, they persist. For every failure there is another kill, for every scar, another chance. Their lineage thrives because they adapt endlessly, exploiting every weakness in prey, every gap in opportunity. They are the blade that sharpens the herbivores, forcing them into herds, into size, into strategies of survival. Without the theropods, the giants would never rise so high. So you crouch in the brush, listening to the crunch of bones as the predator feeds, the distant cries of scavengers, and the eerie stillness of prey too afraid to move. The world of the Jurassic is balanced on this edge of tooth and claw, and the theropods are the ones who tip the scale. The night still hums with the echoes of theropods, but by dawn you notice something subtler, the endless patience of the herbivores, not merely eating but perfecting how to eat. The Jurassic is not just about size, It is about strategies, and nowhere is that clearer than in the way plant eaters adapt to the stubborn, resinous plants of their age. You follow a herd of sauropodomorphs as they browse in the forest margins. Their heads sway gently back and forth, necks dipping into cycads, ginkgos, and low conifers. Their teeth are not sharp, but blunt, simple pegs designed for raking leaves from branches. They strip foliage in broad sweeps, swallowing it whole, sending it down into stomachs that are less like sacks and more like biological furnaces. Inside, fermentation breaks down fiber over long hours. Their bellies gurgle audibly, and the air grows pungent with methane. You probably won't survive if you linger too close to the rear of the herd. The stench alone is staggering. Herbivory in the Jurassic is a test of endurance. The plants are tough, spiny, and often toxic. Cycads, for instance, load their tissues with poisons. Ginkgo leaves are fibrous and bitter. Horsetails are gritty with silica, as rough as sandpaper on enamel. To cope, dinosaurs evolve unique adaptations. Sauropods expand their guts, turning sheer volume into a digestive tool. Ornithischians experiment with grinding teeth, chewing tough fronds before swallowing. Stegosaurs and ankylosaurs, still in their primitive beginnings, will one day sprout armor to buy time to graze longer. Watch closely, and you'll see technique at work. A sauropod stretches its neck upward, stripping branches that no smaller herbivore can reach. Another lowers its head to rake ferns close to the ground. Between them, nothing is left uneaten. Their strategy is vertical partitioning, dividing up the plant buffet by height. It reduces competition and lets multiple species feed side by side without exhausting resources. Nearby, small ornithischians scurry along the forest edge. They are nervous, quick, and constantly chewing. Their teeth are leaf-shaped, capable of slicing greenery into manageable bites. Unlike sauropods, they can process food before it reaches the stomach. They chew rapidly, heads bobbing, tails twitching for balance. The crackle of their teeth is constant, like a chorus of grinding. Insects flee their foraging, and pterosaurs dart down to snatch the escapees. Even stranger adaptations exist. Some herbivores gulp stones, swallowing them into muscular stomachs where they act as gastroliths, grinding rocks that churn plant matter into pulp. You pick one up from the mud, polished smooth from endless grinding inside a belly. These animals turn their guts into food processors, relying on rocks to do what their teeth cannot. Plant senses escalate in response. Conifers ooze sticky resin, trapping insects and clogging the mouths of careless grazers. Horsetails grow taller and tougher each season, silica cutting teeth down to nubs. Ferns blanket burned landscapes, sprouting quickly after fire, daring herbivores to keep pace. This arms race between plants and eaters defines the landscape, one side building barriers, the other finding ways around them. You notice the rhythm of feeding. In the cool morning, herds move steadily, filling their guts before the day's heat. By midday, they rest in shade, fermenting their meals, stomachs swollen. At dusk they feed again, chewing or stripping foliage until the light fades. The pattern is endless: eat, digest, survive. Their bodies are machines built for one purpose: to turn stubborn Jurassic greenery into fuel for life. It isn't only sauropods and ornithischians. Early stegosaurs and ankylosaurs are beginning to appear, experimenting with body armor as protection. While they graze slowly, their teeth are simple, but their bulk buys time. One ankylosaurid ancestor waddles through the undergrowth, tail dragging, jaws snapping at ferns. Its body is low, heavy, and armored with bony plates. A predator might think twice before testing it, and that hesitation means more minutes to feed. Every mouthful carries risk. The sound of foliage tearing can draw predators. A herd drinking too long at a river can invite ambush. Herbivores adapt with group strategies. They graze in circles, tails outward. They travel in herds that stamp the ground in alarm when danger stirs. The tiniest creatures hide in the center, the largest keep watch at the edges. As the day fades, you sit back and watch the slow ballet of plant and eater. Branches sway as sauropod necks sweep through them. Fern beds rustle as smaller dinosaurs nibble. The air smells of crushed resin, damp soil, and digestive fumes. It may seem monotonous, but in this monotony lies survival. Without these strategies, the giants could not rise. Herbivory in the Jurassic is not passive, it is warfare fought quietly. a struggle of jaws, stomachs and plants that refuse to yield easily. And as you watch the herds fade into the forest shadows, you realize that every towering dinosaur, every armored grazer, every long-necked colossus is not just eating, they are perfecting the art of survival one mouthful at a time. The land is dramatic, but when you wander toward the edges of Pangaea where valleys sink beneath rising seas, you realize the oceans are no less alive. Here the Jurassic giants are not just on land, they are in the water, sleek and fast, built for an entirely different battleground. You stand at the shore of a shallow sea, the waves lap against sandy flats, and beyond the breakers, shadows move beneath the surface. Suddenly, one breaks through, a streamlined ichthyosaur, its body shaped like a modern dolphin. Though it is no mammal, its snout is long, filled with sharp teeth, and its eyes are huge, adapted to the dim blue depths. It arcs into the air with a flash of scales, then plunges back into the waves, leaving a spray of foam. Schools of fish scatter in panic, their silver bodies flashing like mirrors in the sun. Another shadow rises, this one longer and more elegant. A plesiosaur glides just beneath the surface, its neck stretching impossibly far ahead of its body. With a sudden thrust it snatches a fish from the water, jerks it back and swallows it whole. Its four flippers beat like wings, propelling it with effortless grace. These creatures are not dinosaurs, they are marine reptiles, parallel experiments in domination. You probably won't survive venturing into their territory. Step too far into the surf and you'd vanish in a set of jaws before you could scream. The seas themselves are rich. Shoals of ammonites drift, their coiled shells gleaming, tentacles waving as they pulse through the water. They are cephalopods, cousins of squid and octopus, and they fill the role of both prey and predator. Their shells, when broken, release a scent that draws in hungry hunters instantly. You bend down to pick up a washed-up shell, spiral ridges sharp under your fingers. Imagine beaches littered with these, like seashells on a modern coast. Deeper out, larger predators patrol. Massive ichthyosaurs hunt in packs, their streamlined bodies slicing through schools of fish. They breach, diving and twisting in choreographed movements, their tails powering them like living torpedoes. Some are as long as buses, and their presence dominates the seas much like sauropods dominate the land. Marine crocodile relatives are here too, not the short, sluggish reptiles of modern swamps, but long-bodied, fin-limbed hunters. They surge through estuaries, jaws snapping at fish and small plesiosaurs. Their bodies are covered in armored scales, their tails muscular and powerful. They are versatile, equally comfortable in rivers and coastal seas, bridging the boundary between land and ocean. The balance of predator and prey in the water is just as fierce as on land. A plesiosaur darts into a school of fish, its long neck sweeping side to side like a spear. The fish scatter, but many are caught, swallowed in quick gulps. Behind it an ichthyosaur charges, jaws wide, and the plesiosaur jerks away just in time. For a moment, the ocean is white with foam, then both vanish into the blue. The reefs are alive too, though not with coral as you know it. Sponges, algae, and microbial mats dominate, creating nurseries for fish and invertebrates. Crustaceans scuttle along the seafloor, hiding in shells, only to be snapped up by ammonites or crushed in reptilian jaws. It is a layered ecosystem, and every layer is at risk of being devoured by the one above. At night the ocean glows faintly with bioluminescence. Tiny plankton light the waves as predators surge through, leaving glowing trails in the dark. Pterosaurs skim the surface, their shadows darting across the moonlit sea, wings snatching fish in mid-dive. You watch them roost on coastal cliffs, their calls mingling with the hiss of waves. The seas of the Jurassic are not passive backdrops, they are arenas of speed and precision. Land may host the giants of size, but here the giants are defined by agility, by teeth, by endless hunger. You realize that every shoreline is a border between two equally dangerous worlds. Behind you sauropods graze in forests. Before you, ichthyosaurs slice through schools of fish. Between them you stand in the surf, utterly vulnerable to both. The oceans remind you of something crucial. The rise of Jurassic giants is not limited to land. Life is testing boundaries everywhere, on the ground, in the sky, and beneath the waves. And in each place, new rulers emerge, each sculpted by evolution's relentless drive to fill every niche, no matter how perilous. You leave the shore behind, walking inland, across wide floodplains where the land itself seems to stretch forever. But if the seas host their own titans, the continents are no less ambitious. The early Jurassic is still the age of Pangaea, yet cracks are spreading through its surface. You are witnessing the early stages of a slow-motion tectonic drama that will tear the supercontinent apart, and with that rifting comes something crucial: dinosaurs expanding their range into every corner of the globe. Picture the land: rift valleys, splitting through what will one day be the Atlantic coast, lava fields hardening into black stone, chains of freshwater lakes forming in deep basins. These rifts are not scars, they are bridges. Herds of sauropodomorphs, ornithischians and theropods, travel along these new valleys, following rivers that wind, like arteries artist the land. Pterosaurs soar overhead, scanning for fish in the waters below. Even mammals scurry along these routes, unnoticed, carried invisibly into new territories. The world is still one landmass, but slowly barriers emerge, mountains rise, deserts spread, seas creep inland. Each barrier isolates populations, and isolation breeds divergence. One group of dinosaurs wanders east, evolving differently than its cousins to the west. Over millions of years, these subtle splits will create entirely new species, each adapted to its own corner of the breaking world. You see it already in the variety of theropods. In one valley, a tall crested predator like Dilophosaurus hunts with speed and display. In another, stockier forms stalk quietly in the undergrowth. Both descend from the same ancestors, but distance and environment sculpt them into distinct creatures. Evolution works not as a single story, but as countless branches, splitting wherever geography demands. The same applies to the giants. Sauropods, like Cetiosaurus, graze in forested lowlands, but in upland areas, smaller relatives thrive where resources are thinner. Their size is limited by the harshness of their environment, but they persist nonetheless. Eventually, when continents break apart and climates diverge, one lineage will push size to extremes while another remains modest. Diversity is not optional, it is the lifeblood of survival. You probably won't survive walking these migration routes yourself. Rivers flood suddenly, filling valleys with torrents that sweep away everything in their path. Lava vents crack open, spewing ash that suffocates lowlands for months. Even the weather shifts violently. Monsoon seasons bring weeks of flooding, then vanish into months of parching drought. Dinosaurs endure because they adapt, moving when water dries, grazing where plants sprout, traveling in herds to cross hostile ground. Alone you would be lost in days. Still, the spread is relentless. From southern Pangaea, sauropods wander north. From equatorial forests, theropods range outward, following prey across arid plains. Ornithischians spread into niches left vacant, experimenting with body shapes and feeding strategies. Each migration seeds new populations, and each seed grows into a different branch of the great Jurassic tree of life. Even the skies expand. Pterosaurs colonize cliffs from one coast to another, their lightweight bodies carrying them across wide distances. They roost in colonies along rift valleys, and within generations, some adapt to lakes, others to coasts, still others to inland rivers. By spreading, they specialize, diversifying in ways that will only accelerate. The breaking of Pangaea is slow, you wouldn't notice in your lifetime, but its effects ripple constantly. A new sea forms here, a desert expands there, and dinosaurs adapt in real time. What looks to you like a static herd is in the scale of millions of years, a dynamic experiment, changing shape with each generation. At dusk, you climb a rocky outcrop and look west. The horizon glows faintly red, not just with sunset but with volcanic fire. Valleys below teem with herds of sauropods, their necks swaying like ships at sea. Predators linger at the edges. Pterosaurs circle overhead, and in the distance, rivers glint silver under the fading light. It feels endless, yet you know these lands will not remain connected forever. The Jurassic is not just the rise of giants, it is the scattering of them, carried by drifting continents, into isolated worlds, where they will evolve into forms stranger and greater than anything yet seen. Today you walk across one supercontinent. In tens of millions of years you will be forced to sail oceans to cross it. And all along the way, dinosaurs will not just survive this breaking, they will thrive because of it. You've wandered the forests, plains, rivers, and even the seas of this Jurassic dawn. Now you stand on a broad floodplain at dusk, and before you stretches a scene that explains why this age will forever be remembered as the golden age of giants. The sun dips low, painting the sky orange and purple, and in silhouette you see them, the full gathering of Jurassic life, from the smallest mammals darting in the shadows, to the immense sauropods towering against the horizon. This is the foundation of the empire dinosaurs will hold for more than 100 million years. The sauropods dominate the view. Their necks sway like cranes sweeping through canopies to strip entire branches in a single motion. Each step leaves imprints that will harden into fossils, silent signatures of their presence. The earth itself bends under their weight, but still they move forward, unchallenged by any predator. This is their kingdom now, the test run for the even greater behemoths, Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, that will emerge later in the Jurassic. You probably won't survive if you stand in their path, but watching them is mesmerizing. Evolution has pushed body size to a limit that feels impossible, yet here they are, alive and breathing in front of you. Along the margins, theropods keep their distance. Their eyes flash in the twilight as they prowl for opportunity. They are not reckless, they know adults are beyond their reach. But the young, the injured, the lagging, those are the prizes they seek. Their calls rise in the night, strange, guttural and unsettling. You watch them test the edges of the herd, pacing, withdrawing, always waiting for weakness. They are the sharpening stone against which herbivores evolve new defenses, ensuring that the dance of predator and prey never ends. The skies belong to the pterosaurs. They return to their roosts on cliff faces, wings glowing faintly as they fold in the dim light. They have claimed the aerial realm with a mastery no other creature dares contest. Some swoop low over rivers, catching last-minute fish. Others soar high, silhouettes against the stars beginning to prick the sky. Their cries echo across the floodplain, blending with the calls of frogs and insects into a prehistoric symphony. Even the seas play their role. Beyond the coastal flats, ichthyosaurs surge after schools of fish, and plesiosaurs weave their long necks through the shallows. The line between land and water blurs. Predators leap from sea to shore and back again. Death comes from any direction here. Air, land, water, and survival means constant vigilance. And beneath all this grandeur, mammals still scurry in silence. A whiskered head peeks from a burrow, tiny eyes glinting. It darts out, snatches an insect, and vanishes again before anything larger notices. They remain background players for now, hidden in the shadows of giants. Yet the resilience in their strategy, their small size, their intelligence, their endurance will one day flip the world upside down. You stand quietly watching the scene unfold and realize what has happened. Out of the chaos of the Triassic extinction, life reorganized itself. Plants spread new forests. Pterosaurs mastered the skies, reptiles conquered the seas, mammals tucked themselves away in shadows, and dinosaurs seized the land. In just a few million years, they have gone from survivors to rulers, and they are not finished. Their true glory still lies ahead, in the towering colossi of the late Jurassic and beyond. The night deepens. The herd of sauropods moves steadily into the dark, their deep rumbles vibrating through the ground. Theropods stalk the edges, tails stiff, eyes gleaming. Pterosaurs roost high on cliffs, and amphibians croak in the wetlands. The world is alive, raw, balanced between predator and prey, between risk and survival. It is a world dominated by giants, but built by every creature, large and small. And as you take one last look at this Jurassic kingdom, you understand, this was the moment dinosaurs stepped fully into their reign, not as curiosities or survivors, but as rulers whose legacy would echo across deep time. Now as the story fades, imagine yourself lying back in soft ferns beneath the canopy of those ancient conifers. The ground is still warm from the day's sun, and the air is thick with the scent of resin and earth. You can hear the slow, steady breathing of a sauropod herd in the distance, their low rumbles rolling like distant thunder. Each sound is deep, calm, almost like a lullaby carried across the floodplain. Above you, the last pterosaur